So in this video, I'm just going to talk about Game 6 of the World Series. I know the World Series is over. The Cubs won. But I want to show some of the things that I noticed in Game 6 that really stood out to me. There was a lot of the number 11, and it reminded me of the 1997 World Series when the Indians lost in the 11th inning to the Marlins. So anyway, in Game 6, the Cubs won with a score of 9-3, which is super significant. I think I talk about it later. But it forced a Game 7 for the 112th World Series to be played on 11-2. Just like how last year, the 111th World Series, the game began on 11-1. Matt Harvey didn't come out of the game until 111 pitches. New York equals 111. It also, this Game 6 here though, it tied the series at 3-3. Cleveland and the Cubs are both the C, the third letter, 33. Cleveland equals 33. A lot of times you see the number 33 around sacrifice as well. So just interesting, I guess. They tied up at 3-3. Cleveland equals 33. The first thing that I noticed before the game even began is that they showed a clip about chess. So I just want to play the clip. It's kind of crappy, but just watch the clip. It's all about chess. And I talked about how we had the death of Phil Chess, the guy who owned Chess Records in Chicago, but he died in Tucson, Arizona. I also talked about the death of Sean Rooks, who was the former NBA player, and he went to interview with the New York Knicks, and then he died of a heart attack. But Sean Rooks and Phil Chess, and Sean Rooks played college at the University of Arizona that's in Tucson, Arizona. Arizona lost the College World Series this year. Terry Francona was I believe the MVP of the 1980 College World Series. He played for Arizona. But anyway, just check out the clip and they talk about chess.
The objective is simple, but the path to victory complex. Strategy put to the test. Maneuvers contested. Each move setting up the next until one is victorious. Chicago refused to be a pawn in Game 5, deftly moving around the board to avoid elimination. With their pieces set, Cleveland looks to capture a World Series title for the first time since 1948. The Cubs hope to avoid checkmate, while the Indians look to be crowned king. Who will make the right moves tonight?
So, first thing I want to mention in regards to it is they say that the Indians look to be crowned king, which to me doesn't make any sense. That doesn't happen in chess. That happens in checkers. You know, you get crowned king in checkers, but in chess, you're just the king. You're trying to protect the king. You're already the king. You're already crowned. I don't know. Doesn't make that much sense to me for them to say that, but, you know, in chess, the king is the most worthless piece in the game of chess. The queen is the best piece, you know? And with all the stuff in regards to Prince Charles and becoming the new king and all that, it's just, you know, Queen Elizabeth's still kicking, still the one in power supposedly. Just kind of funny because it reminds me of chess. The queen has all the power, you know, the king just kind of sits back. So Game 6 comes to an end. The Indians lose 3-9, or the Cubs win 9-3. Arizona and New York are the only two states that equal 39. So interesting, all of the chess stuff comes back to Arizona. Arizona 39, New York 39, Indians lose 3-9. And you know the reflection, 93, Saturn equals 93. That's what the Jews worship. After the World Trade Centers were taken down, the World Trade Centers that looked like a giant 11 in the 11th state. And I'm telling you, in a minute, I'm going to show you a whole bunch of 11s they showed us in this game. But just keep that in mind. The World Trade Centers, the Giant 11, New York, the 11th state. But in 1993, we got the bombings at the World Trade Center on February 26, 226. If you write that out as words, it equals 93 in Gematria. After the World Trade Centers were knocked down, they rebuilt one World Trade Center in Gematria. One World Trade Center equals 93. Think about Flight 93 during 9/11. Flight 93 crashed in Indian Lake, or it was in between Indian Lake and Shanksville, Pennsylvania. So just interesting in regards to the World Series, Indians, whatever. The date numerology of Game 6, 11 plus 1 plus 20 plus 16 equals 48. The Indians haven't won since the year 48. Arizona, the 48th state. Trevor Bauer's 48th pitch in Game 5 caused a home run by Bryant to tie the score 1-1, a lot like 11. Curse of the Billy Goat equals 223 in Gematria. The 48th prime number is 223. In Game 6, Tomlin even came out of the game after 48 pitches. So 48 was a big cursed number, it seems, around the Indians. A big thing that really stuck out to me, and that's when I was almost positive that the World Series was going to be the Indians versus the Cubs, was the fact that there was the Hoboken train wreck, and Chris Christie said there was 114 people injured, and if the Cubs would go on to win the World Series, they would have 114 wins. The same day of the Hoboken train wreck, though, there was a tie. The Cubs tied the Pittsburgh Pirates, and they tied them 1-1, a lot like an 11. It was the first tie since 2005 when Houston tied the Reds 114 days before the World Series began in 2005. Houston went on to lose to the Chicago White Sox for the first time, and the Chicago White Sox won for the first time in 88 years. Curse of the Billy Goat equals 88. But tie equals 114. The Cubs were in their 114th season being called the Cubs. And the reason I knew it was the Indians was because that same day the Indians had a game postponed against Detroit, and they never made that game up. The Indians were cursed in a roundabout way through Detroit. The Cubs were also cursed because, they were playing Detroit when the curse of the Billy Goat happened. The game was on 11-1, which even reminds me, it's 111, but it's also 11 and 11. And they kept showing this commercial over and over. November 11th, USA versus Mexico. 11-11. Interesting, too, the numbers here, 4 and 14. Back-to-back equals 414 in English Gematria. It's something that it just never ends. I watched the fourth quarter of the Golden State Warriors versus the Oklahoma City Thunder tonight, and Kevin Durant at the end of the game even mentioned back-to-back. The announcers were even talking about how after 5 games into the season that some of the players were tired, or they were kind of joking about it being tired after 5 games, and they were like, a back-to-back 5 games into the season. They never stop saying back-to-back. If you just listen to the announcers, listen to what's going on if you're watching the whole game, they say back-to-back more than I ever remember. I mean, it's so obvious anymore. And what's funny, during the World Series, I even made a post about Ben Zobrist. It was something, the announcer said something when he was up to bat. Funny that he was the MVP of the World Series. He won back-to-back championships. I mean, just kind of weird. Back-to-back equals 69. Benjamin Zobrist equals 69. Of course, his full name equals 91, just like Chicago Cubs. Go figure, he plays for the Chicago Cubs. He's really synced up to World Series, too. This year, his birthday was on the 147th day of the year. World Series, the big weight, equals 147. And, May 26th, his birthday, even 5 months, 7 days before the World Series, or before Game 7, and World Series, this ball weight equals 57. His date numerology of his birthday, equals 112, the 112th World Series. It ends on 11/2. He was even drafted by Houston. Houston in Gematria equals 112. Super Bowl 51 is going to be held in Houston this year. I pointed out some other stuff because the score at the time was 3-1. I've been talking about all this 127 stuff in regards to the Indians and whatnot. But, you know, the score ended up being 8-7. A whole bunch more to it, but let's go back. Just wanted to point out, I guess, back-to-back's been really big still. The whole significance, I'm not for sure. I've been following something that really seems like they're foreshadowing World War and whatnot. World War III also equals 69. At the end of November, November 29th, Israel will celebrate its 69th anniversary of being recognized. But anyway, 4/14 equals back-to-back. It was also 4 months, 14 days after LeBron James won the NBA Finals on the real King James birthday. And then it ended up being back-to-back, come from behind, 3-1 to win the championship. In regards to chess as well, you know, it's played on an 8x8 board. Talked about the royal family. Elizabeth equals 88. Curse of the Billy Goat equals 88. Anyway, there was a really big play in this game as well where Baez got a double play and they made a big deal out of it. And they showed a replay of it at this angle. And when they showed it, the big clock right here said 11:11. Even when, if you looked over here, there was like 2 dashes that looked like the pause symbol. And this is the pause symbol on my DVR. But, you know, the pause symbol even looks like an 11. So 11:11. It was number 11 running to second base. Baez wears number 9, 9-11. And I mean, you know, 11-11. The first plane to hit the towers was AA-11. A, the first letter, a lot like 11-11. New York, the 11th state. The World Trade Centers look like a giant 11. September 11th. The day that leaves 111 days in the year. This game was played on 11/1. And then the score was 9-3. Just reminding us of all this stuff in regards to 9/11. Even when you write out 226, like I said, equals 93. I just made a video about Ferris Bueller's Day Off and how it syncs up to Game 7 of the World Series. Ferris Bueller's Day Off equals 226. And Matthew Broderick, the star, his birthday was 226 days before Game 7. He was 54 years old. Baseball, the word baseball equals 54. And check this out. In Game 6, they played this little promo for the Cubs. And they played the Ferris Bueller's Day Off song in it. You know, so maybe they did this in other games. This is the first one that I noticed in it. And it's just hilarious that I've just made a video about it. And then literally, Game 6, they play a video with the Ferris Bueller song.
AT&T call to the bullpen. Earlier than Terry.
I mean, oh, the odds. They're playing a Ferris Bueller song. Also, after the Cubs brought in Chapman, they took him out after 20 pitches. Then they brought in this guy, Strop, or Strop, however you say it. And they took him out after 11 pitches. And the announcers before this kept saying, the one guy kept saying, I really thought there was going to be 11 pitchers tonight, not 10 pitches. And then this guy goes out after his 11th pitch, and then they joke, and he's like, well, there's your 11th pitcher, you know. In the 9th inning, 11 pitches. They brought in the 11th pitcher, 93-39, all syncing up to New York in the World Trade Center fake attacks, you know. Russell on the Cubs, even hit a grand slam. ESPN made sure to let us know that Russell hit the first series slam in 11 years. And then they went on to remind us that the Cleveland Indians lost in 7 innings in 1997. So just, more 11. And if you read out 11th inning as words in Gematria, it equals 91, just like Chicago Cubs. In regards to chess, once again, Aroldis Chapman, his name equals 134 in Gematria. His full name, the small way, equals 134. And when he got traded, there was a big article about the Yankees owner, and they called him King something, King George something something. I have a link here, whatever. But King Charles III equals 134. Just connecting to Aroldis Chapman and whatnot. Just found that kind of interesting, as one of the big deals in the game was that he did come in and he might have been too tired to play in Game 7. And, because he's a pro athlete and his arm gets too tired to throw 100 pitches, but he practices all the time and he throws 100 pitches in the bullpen before he comes out and pitches. Don't throw so many in the bullpen. Maybe your arm won't be so tired. It's so obvious. It's just so obvious when you figure out that they actually do use numbers and they take people out after certain pitches. It's just stupid. But anyway, in regards to 11-11, I've been talking about how they seem to be foreshadowing World War kind of stuff. I'm not saying that it's causing World War. They're just coding stuff to World War, and possibly it is for the next World War. Or possibly that won't happen for 5 more years, They've been doing the same thing with the Civil War theme, and they've just gradually been making it worse. But what's interesting is that World War I came to an end on November 11th, 11/11, and the Cubs were going for their 114th win. Cubs in their 114th season being called the Cubs. World War in Gematria equals 114. Holocaust equals 114. Pearl Harbor equals 114. Terry Francona, he ended up losing in Game 7, and now he's 11-4 in World Series games. It was even super connected to the Cleveland Cavaliers and LeBron James. LeBron James equals 114 in Gematria. Before the game even began, they made sure to tell us that the temperature was 71 degrees, and the average temperature for 11-1 is 48 degrees, right? The Cubs were cursed from 71 years ago. But what's interesting is that if you read out World War III, like this, 3 as a word, it equals 71. And World War II even came to an end 71 years ago. And then, of course, all the 48 around the Indians, they hadn't won since the year 48. Israel declared its independence in the year 48. Prince Charles Board of the Year 48. Israel created out of World War. It's the 112th World Series. The emergency dialing code and lots of other parts of the world is 112 instead of 911. Just something interesting. Kyle Hendricks, the starting pitcher for the Cubs that night, he was even going into the game with a 1-1 record in the playoffs this year. He was even born on December 7th, 12/7, a lot like 127. I've just kept talking about all of the 127 that was going on. It's connected to the Dakota Access Pipeline. We got a story about 127 people being arrested there. North Dakota in Gematria equals 127. Game 7 of the World Series was played on November 2nd, which just so happened to be the 127th anniversary of North Dakota becoming a state. I talked about all the Michael Jordan stuff as well. He played 127 baseball games. His first one was on 4/8. He was born on the 48th day of the year. The Major League Baseball strike in '94 happened 127 days after Michael Jordan's first game. The Bulls retired his number 23 1 year, 27 days after he retired. He quit baseball on a date numerology of 127. I mean, just all kinds of 127 stuff. And then, of course, you know, he's number 28. Corey Kluber's number 28. Israel equals 28 in gematria. Also, the 28th prime, 107. King Charles equals 107. Earthquake equals 107. Just stuff I've been talking about a whole lot. I noticed Corey Kluber was born in Birmingham, Alabama, which is where Michael Jordan played baseball for the Birmingham Barons. His record, it said, was 4-1 in the postseason. If he would have won, it would have been 5-1 to make it Cleveland. But the Cleveland Cavaliers had already broke the 51-year curse, or the 51-year sports drought. You know, LeBron James equals 51, Cleveland Cavs equal 51, Quicken Loans equal 51, Cleveland equals 51. So it would have made more sense if the Cavs hadn't won for them to break the 51-year-old curse, you know. I guess also in regards to the number 28, if you write out 28, it equals 156. 9/11 is the 156 prime number. 33 equals 156 when you write it out. And just think about it. This game, Game 6, made the series 3-3. Cleveland C, Cubs C, CC 33, the highest degree in Scottish Rite Freemasonry. Even the pilot of Flight 93 and during 9/11, Z whatever, his name equals 156. He was born on 5/11. Saturn in Jewish gematria equals 5/11. False flag equals 156. The company who built the World Trade Center, their name equals 156. So interesting. I mean, a lot of this stuff was super coded in 9/11, and I think it was because it was on, you know, the 112th World Series 112. It's the emergency dialing code, just like 911. Also, the Indians hadn't won in 68 years. 9/11, all about the number 68. The World Trade Center construction began on 6/8 of 68. George Bush graduated Yale Skull and Bones in 1968. 911 made the emergency dialing code in 1968. George Bush born 68 days before 9/11. 1968 was even 33 years before 2001. Barack Obama equals 68. Pope Francis equals 68. Donald John Trump equals 68. Prince Charles equals 68. If you write out the word 68, it equals 56. The word president equals 56. Osama bin Laden equals 56. Rockefeller equals 56. Flight 175, the plane that hit the South Tower on 9/11, had 56 passengers. The South Tower collapsed 56 minutes after it supposedly hit the World Trade Center. Adolf Hitler equals 56. Saddam Hussein equals 56. ISIS equals 56. Paris, France equals 56. I mean, talk about being lied to your whole life. Even in regards to the birth of the nation, there was 56 signers on the Declaration of Independence. John Hancock was the first one to sign it. He died aged 56. The last guy who signed it to die was Charles Carroll III. He died 56 years after signing the Declaration of Independence. And think about his name in regards to Prince Charles and whatnot. Charles Carroll III, CC III, a lot like 333 even. Philadelphia, Declaration of Independence signed in Philadelphia. Prince Charles will become King Charles III if Queen Elizabeth ever dies. You know, just a lot of interesting things to think about. 1968, of course, 48 years ago. So Game 7 was on November 2nd. That equals 154. Native Americans equal 154. Extra innings equal 154. What happened last night? Went to extra innings. To the 10th inning, where the Cubs got their 8th run in the 10th inning, making it a lot like 108 or 8/10. Rocky Colavito was born on 8/10. That's who the Indians are cursed by. I just threw in some of these other ones because they connect to stuff that I've talked about previously, but the guy who made Valentine's a holiday, the Pope, Gelasius I equals 154. There's also a Pope called Pope Valentine. His name equals 154, Gematria. King James, the guy who made the King James Bible and whatnot, he was king of England for 22 years, 3 days. Curse of the Billy Goat equals 223. The word Masonic equals 223. The Synagogue of Satan equals 223. But he died in Theobald's house, that equals 154. In the English Civil War, when they brought King Charles II back to the crown, they called it the Restoration. Restoration equals 154. Ohio earthquake equals 154. The Fresh Prince equals 154, connecting back to Philadelphia. I'm telling you, there's something big going on with the Comcast Center, the 58-story Comcast Center in Philadelphia. It has the big black cube on it, you know, the New Jerusalem or whatever. The Saturn reference, everything else. But in the movie Happy Gilmore, he learns how to putt on the Earthquake Golf Course. If you write out Happy Gilmore, it equals 145. Just like Chicago, Illinois. The building that falls over when he's putting on that course, it literally looks just like the Comcast Center. Earthquakes, the number 58 and 85 are all around earthquakes. Maybe I'll leave a little annotation or something so you can read it, but all kinds of stuff. The study of seismology even goes back to 585 BC. I think Richter scale equals one of them, 58. Seismograph equals 58. I mean, it's just so ridiculous. Also, plutonium-239 equals 154. That's what they made the atomic bombs with and whatnot. And just think about that in regards to the Back to the Future and the Cubs. They have to use plutonium to, plutonium's the gas for time travel. And they have to go 88 miles an hour. If you're out 154, it equals 108. The big number around the Cubs that even the mainstream media was talking about. A few other things I noticed in this game. Number 44, Rizzo. He hit Tomlin's 44th pitch. Oh, the odds. The Cubs had 3 runs in the third, like 33. There was even the Indians missed the routine fly ball. Like nobody knew what was going on. It's the World Series and they can't catch fly balls. They're throwing wild pitches. They're walking people in. You know, it's so stupid, even without numbers. If you're watching it, oh my God, it's just so dumb. I can't believe that I was so stupid for so long, you know? I seriously thought that only the NBA was rigged for many years, so. And once I learned about numerology and gematria, holy cow, it just proves everything you've ever thought. I also noted that the Cubs had the 108-year drought, the Indians 68. If you add them up, it equals 176, which is also 88 plus 88. But Back to the Future equals 176 in gematria. Game 7 had numbers favoring the Cubs. You know, Game 7, 37-46, 91. Chicago equals 37-46. Chicago Cubs equal 46-91. Chicago, Illinois, 91. 91 equals 49. The date numerology of Game 7 was 49. They even talked about Addison Russell hitting a grand slam. He was the first Filipino-American to do so since Paul Konerko in the 2005 World Series or whatever, 2005 season, I guess, with the Chicago White Sox. Filipino-American equals 91 like Chicago Cubs. Also 154 the big way. But once again, showing us the 2005 season, connecting it to Michael Jordan. This guy born on 3/5, the word Grand Slam equals 35. And he's even traded to the White Sox on 11/11. So hopefully that makes sense. I mean, there's just so much coding going on. It's so obvious. They're using a lot of 9/11 stuff. But running out of time, going to end the video there. Have a good one.